Naruyuki Yuiga is a senior at Ichinos Academy. He really wants a special recommendation to get into university without taking a tough entrance exam or paying any fees. The school headmaster agrees to give him this recommendation, but there's a condition. Naruyuki has to tutor two girls, Fumino Furuhashi, who's amazing with literature and languages, and Rizu Ogata, who's a math genius. Naruyuki soon figures out that Fumino is not good at math, and Rizu struggles with English. They've had no luck with other tutors, so Naruyuki stays up all night making study materials for them. As they study together, he feels a bit awkward because the two girls get very close to him. He finds out that Rizu's family owns a udon restaurant. When he walks home with Fumino, she tells him that she wants to become an astronomer. Later, he sees Rizu in a park and learns that she has trouble understanding emotions, so she's determined to study psychology. When Naruyuki gets back home, he lives with his mother, twin younger brother and sister, and his younger sister Mizuki. Mizuki is pretty upset because she can smell the perfumes of the two girls on him, and she has a strong attachment to her brother. Naruyuki also has another friend from middle school, Yuruka Tekimoto. She's an amazing swimmer and has a chance for a sports scholarship, but she's not doing well in her regular subjects, so the headmaster asks Naruyuki to help her study. At first, Yuruka doesn't want to study, but when she finds out about Fumino and Rizu, who are getting help for Naruyuki, she decides to join their study group. Yuruka has secretly liked Naruyuki since middle school. Rizu has to rewrite an essay about civilization in just 24 hours, and she asks Naruyuki for help. Then there's a blackout in Naruyuki's neighborhood, and Rizu gets scared of the dark, so she holds on to Naruyuki. Yuruka pretends to be scared too. Naruyuki makes an oil lamp so they can keep studying, but Yuruka accidentally blows it out. Rizu ends up turning in an okay essay about how civilizations form around campfires. Yuruka has to pass an English vocabulary test to stay in the swimming club. When she gets distracted, Naruyuki comes up with a plan to combine swimming with studying, and she ends up getting a perfect score. To thank Naruyuki, Yuruka gives him a pencil case, but she realizes she accidentally gave him her swimsuit instead. The headmaster tells Naruyuki that he needs to make sure Fumino and Rizu score at least average on their midterms. Mafuyu Kirisu, their previous tutor, says that if they fail, Naruyuki should be removed as their tutor. While studying at Rizu's parents' restaurant, Rizu is happy to hear that Naruyuki plans to keep helping them. She does well and scores above average in modern Japanese, but Fumino gets sick with a cold right before her math exam. Yuruka and Naruyuki step in to help her study. Fumino gets better and does well on her math test, so Naruyuki stays as their tutor, although he catches Fumino's cold. Yuruka still hasn't told Naruyuki about her feelings for him. Her friends take her shopping for nice clothes, and when she bumps into Naruyuki, she feels shy because people think they're a couple. Naruyuki sees a toy that his little sister wants in a princess carrying competition, and they win it. Afterward, Yuruka asks Naruyuki if her new clothes look good, but she runs away before he can answer. Naruyuki gets into trouble with Mizuki when she finds out about the competition. Fumino decides she wants to lose weight. Naruyuki notices she's really hungry and tells her she's already thin, but she makes him feel her stomach to prove her point. Later, he sees her buying snacks and finds out she believes studying at night burns more calories, so she eats a lot after school. When they figure out why she's gaining weight, Fumino goes back to her normal weight. Rizu gets confronted by Sawako Sakijo, who is the president of the science club. She's convinced that Rizu loves Naruyuki and started studying psychology because of him. Sawako asks Rizu some embarrassing questions, but Rizu doesn't react. Naruyuki realizes that Sawako just wants to be Rizu's friend and hints that they should study together in the library. Yuruka accidentally forgets to wear her bra to school, and she's really scared that Naruyuki might find out. During a basketball game, she's so focused on hiding her breasts that Naruyuki gets worried about her health. She decides to act normally, but she ends up falling with her breasts in Naruyuki's face. It turns out Naruyuki is used to it because his sister Mizuki often doesn't wear a bra at home. Later, Mizuki punishes him for noticing that she's actually wearing a bra. During a 3-day mountain study camp, Fumino notices that Rizu keeps looking at Naruyuki, so Rizu starts avoiding him. She gets so flustered that she goes outside and ends up getting lost. Rizu daydreams about Naruyuki coming to rescue her, and then he actually shows up because he realized she was missing. She's embarrassed when he rescues her, and she falls, accidentally kissing him. Rizu tries to act like nothing happened, even when their teacher punishes them by making them clean the baths. Then the girls suddenly enter the area, so Rizu tries to stop them. Naruyuki hides under a bench with Fumino, Rizu, and Yuruka sitting above him. Fumino almost finds him, but Sawako helps him escape. Unfortunately, he bumps into Yuruka and sees her completely naked, but Yuruka is so shocked that she thinks she's hallucinating. Later, Rizu apologizes for causing so much trouble and tells Naruyuki that the kiss was an accident. Naruyuki reports the girl's progress to Ms. Kirisu, who reveals that she knows about the kiss. When Ms. Kirisu questions whether Naruyuki is a good tutor, the girls quickly defend him. Later, Naruyuki notices that Ms. Kirisu has an injured hand, and he realizes she was also looking for Rizu in the mountains. It shows that she secretly cares about the students. One of Naruyuki's friends finds out that he kissed a girl, and Yuruka overhears this. She gets upset because she's been hiding her feelings for Naruyuki for a long time. Yuruka and Rizu's scores on their tests drop because of the rumor, and Fumino realizes that they both like Naruyuki. Yuruka's friends from the swimming club decide to help her get closer to Naruyuki. Naruyuki, who can sometimes be a bit clueless, thinks that if Yuruka and Rizu are in love, he should stop getting in their way. Yuruka changes her school uniform to be more attractive while they walk together, and they end up at a shrine. Yuruka pretends to fall asleep as her friend suggested to see how Naruyuki reacts. She becomes embarrassed when he starts licking her, but then she realizes it's just stray cats. Yuruka discovers that Naruyuki is flustered because she's showing more of her breasts, and it makes her happy. Later, Naruyuki gets confused when Yuruka's test scores suddenly improve again. Fumino accidentally falls into Naruyuki's arms, which makes Rizu angry. Fumino tries to push Naruyuki into Rizu's arms, but instead she pushes him into Rizu's chest. Later, Fumino finds out that Rizu looked angry because she was wearing her old glasses and didn't actually see what happened. While rescuing a cat stuck in a tree, Naruyuki meets Kirisu. He catches the cat, but Kirisu sprains her ankle. He takes her home and realizes she's quite messy. When Kirisu decides to tutor Naruyuki, he insists on cleaning up and finds her figure skating awards. Kirisu explains that she used to be an amazing skater but had to give it up. That's why she wants the girls to use their talents, as she couldn't use hers. After Naruyuki leaves, Kirisu reveals that she was really flustered by having a man in her room. There's a rumor that Naruyuki is dating Fumino, and he becomes the target of Fumino's fan club. They want to make sure he's worthy. At first, they're disappointed because there's no romantic involvement, but they eventually decide that it's enough that Fumino trusts Naruyuki. So they give up on the dating rumor, which makes Fumino relieved. Naruyuki's mother wins a smartphone, but Naruyuki isn't very good at using it. Yuruka comes across a website suggesting that studying in the bath is more effective. That night, Naruyuki decides to give it a try and studies in the bath. But there's a mishap. He accidentally texts Fumino, who's also in her bath, and they get embarrassed at the idea of talking while naked. Then he accidentally calls Rizu, who starts imagining what it would be like to bathe together and almost drowns. Later, Naruyuki and Yuruka have an embarrassing moment when they realize they're having a video call and see each other naked. The next day at school, Yuruka is really tired and collapses. While waiting for the school nurse, Yuruka, half asleep, gets close to Naruyuki. Just then, the swim team arrives, which makes Naruyuki panic, and he hides under the bed. While hiding, Naruyuki overhears them talking about Yuruka being in love with him, and it makes him feel flustered around her. Yuruka takes him to a ramen shop and asks if he likes anyone. Naruyuki says he's not thinking about relationships until after final exams. He then asks if she likes him, but she denies it. Naruyuki comes across a frightened Kirisu outside because of a cockroach. He tries to kill it, but Kirisu gets scared and clings to him, so the cockroach gets away. Kirisu insists that Naruyuki stays and tutors him all day. She orders food from Rizu's restaurant without knowing Rizu works there, and Rizu ends up delivering the food. Naruyuki asks if he can play one of Rizu's card games, but that doesn't go well because Rizu keeps losing. Naruyuki tries to tell Rizu that someone does care about her, but Rizu misunderstands, not knowing he's talking about Kirisu. When the cockroach appears again, Rizu manages to kill it. Naruyuki's mother gets sick, so he decides to volunteer at her workplace. What he doesn't know is that she works at a lingerie store. The manager dresses him up as the store's mascot before leaving. To Naruyuki's shock, Yuruka and Rizu visit the shop and ask Rizu to be measured for a new bra. After they leave, Naruyuki finds Kirisu stuck in a brae, which he helps her with. Fumino also comes to the store to find bras for her smaller breasts. Once Naruyuki is finally free from the costume, Fumino is left in shock. Naruyuki goes to cram school and meets Asumi Kaminami, but he makes a mistake and thinks she's in middle school. When Naruyuki gets lost, two strange guys grab him and take him to a maid cafe where Kaminami works. Naruyuki sees her studying material and figures out that she's not good at science. The other maids offer him free drinks to bribe him. Later, Naruyuki accidentally runs into a doctor, and Kaminami brings him the train pass he forgot. It turns out the doctor is her dad. Kaminami doesn't want her dad to know about her job, so she says Naruyuki is her boyfriend. Her dad tells her to give up on medical school, but Naruyuki promises to help her study, and her dad agrees. A few days later, Naruyuki is tutoring the girls at a restaurant, and they meet Kaminami. The next day, all three of them start going to cram school. They get caught in the rain, so Kaminami invites them to her home, where Fumino learns about Naruyuki pretending to be her boyfriend. Kaminami quickly figures out that Fumino has her own feelings for Naruyuki. When Kaminami asks Naruyuki which girl he likes, he realizes he hasn't thought about it much. Kaminami decides to keep teasing him in a playful way. Kirisu sees Naruyuki at high stage and tells him that Kaminami used to be her student. Then, Kirisu accidentally injures another waitress, so she has to work as a temporary replacement. But things get funny when Kirisu takes a sip of alcohol by mistake and gets drunk. Naruyuki has to carry her home because she can't walk properly. On a weekend, Kirisu has to work again, but she has no clean clothes, so she wears her old school uniform. A police officer stops her, thinking she's too young to drive, but Naruyuki passes by and saves her from the situation. Kirisu drives Naruyuki to school so he can return library books while she goes to get some paperwork. Unfortunately, her car runs out of gas, so they have to walk home. While walking, Kirisu talks about how she missed out on having a social life because of her figure skating. Naruyuki buys her ice cream to cheer her up, but when Fumino and Rizu show up, they have to hide in some bushes. Naruyuki comes up with a quick plan and pretends they're a couple kissing, which makes the two girls run away in embarrassment. Finally, they reach Kirisu's apartment, but they get spotted by Kaminami. Naruyuki and Ruka both ask Fumino for advice about their feelings for each other. Later, when they meet up, they struggle to talk, so they end up texting Fumino for help. Fumino tries to give good advice, but Naruyuki and Ruka keep remembering all the embarrassing moments they've had together. Fumino accidentally tells Naruyuki to compliment Yuruka's hair, and surprisingly, it works. During their next swimming competition, Yuruka's team gets disqualified because her teammate, Akita, makes a mistake. Naruyuki is impressed that Yuruka comforts Akita. Yuruka asks Naruyuki to go with her to their old middle school at night. She remembers when she first fell in love with Naruyuki. She reminds him that she almost quit swimming, but he convinced her to continue, although Naruyuki has forgotten this. Naruyuki asks if she's confessed to the boy she likes, which she hasn't, so he insists on practicing. Yuruka decides to confess for real. Unfortunately, Naruyuki is so dense that he thinks she's still practicing. Frustrated, Yuruka pushes him into the pool and gets him to agree to call her by her first name. Rizu invites Fumino, Yuruka, and Sawako to a sleepover study group, but without Naruyuki, the girls end up asking Sawako for help. Naruyuki takes his mother and youngest siblings to a festival and sees Fumino and Yuruka there. His mother tells him to hang out with his friends, so Fumino goes off on her own, leaving Naruyuki with Yuruka. They come across a food stall run by Rizu and her father. Naruyuki helps Rizu deliver the food, and he spots Kirisu, who accidentally gets hurt. Naruyuki has to carry her to the medical tent, where Kaminami and her father are. Kaminami has a blushing Naruyuki treat Kirisu himself. Later, both Fumino and Naruyuki miss the last train home. They decide to stay at an inn, and Fumino claims they are siblings to trick the manager. To pass the time, they end up stargazing. Naruyuki talks about not knowing his dream, and Fumino reassures him that she'll be there to support him when he figures it out. The next morning, they wake up in each other's arms, feeling a bit embarrassed.